Mark Meadows. Is Mark Meadows the ringleader of this thing? Was he? Mark Meadows was, keep in mind, Mark Meadows was a creature of the Koch network. He was one of the Freedom Caucus. They call themselves the Freedom Caucus. I call them the Cokehead Caucus because most all of them are taking money directly or indirectly from, entities and billionaires associated with this network that back in the day David and Charles Koch set up. And Charles continues to have a considerable influence over. And Mark Meadows was one of those guys who was heavily funded by the right-wing billionaires and their network. And in Congress he was he was policy-wise, he was kind of a Jim Jordan. He wasn't a fire-breathing idiot, but a little more thoughtful. But, he ended up as Donald Trump's right-hand man, his chief of staff. And what we know now, and this, came out some time ago, Talking Points Memo published this article, Mark Meadows exchanged texts with 34 members of Congress about plans to overturn the 2020 election. And, one of the more inflammatory ones that was published by the January 6th committee about a year ago was Congressman Ralph Norman, the Republican from South Carolina, saying, "Our last hope is invoking martial law. Please urge the president to do so." And, Mark Meadows has responded to some of these by saying, here's another one. This is from Jason Miller, who was a Trump campaign advisor. And he said, you need to get in he said, "I asked Al Pardo from our press shop to get in touch with Representative Mo Brooks' office since he seems to be the ringleader on the January 6th deal. They say they will have as many as 50 members of Congress on board by 1/6. We're hoping to move real numbers on the 6th. I think we need to quickly start mobilizing our real deal allies. I'm ready to go. I have bodies to help. We'll follow your lead." And then Mark Meadows replies, "Thanks, Jason. You're the best. I'll bring it up with POTUS, and I plan to meet with them on Saturday." There was a whole group of Republican members of Congress who were involved in this explicit attempt to overthrow the government of the United States. Andy Biggs, Mike Kelly, Billy Long, Warren Davidson, Chip Roy, Brian Babin, Kevin Kramer, Mark Green, Louis Gohmert, Greg Murphy, Paul Gosar, Ralph Norman, Mike Lee, Senator, Kevin Brady, Scott Perry, Ted Budd, Tom Emmer, Jim Jordan, who's leading the campaign now to cover all this stuff up by claiming that Democrats are weaponizing, right. Jim Jordan, Richard Hudson, Jody Heiss, another one who has been very, very outspoken, Barry Loudermilk, Ron Johnson, the senator, David Perdue, the senator, ex-senator, Rick Allen, Bob Gibbs, Mo Brooks, Mike Johnson, Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, Cynthia Lummis, Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, asked for a pardon, in fact. She knew what she was up to. Representative Barry Moore, Fred Keller, Dan Bishop, Andrew Clyde. These folks should be answering for what they did. There has been no congressional investigation into this. Frankly, there should have been in the 2 years that the Democrats controlled the House of Representatives. And I consider this a major failure, frankly, of Nancy Pelosi's administration, that she never directed a committee in the House to look into their peers. Who were the people who are participating in January 6th? And of course, the January 6th committee, had Liz Cheney on it. The Democrats on that committee, including Benny Thompson, the chairman, bowed to Liz Cheney's demand that they not investigate any Republicans except Donald Trump. And I think that was just a travesty. So anyway, I want that rant on the record. I think it's important that we not let this go. And I hope that Jack Smith is looking into these people's activities on January 6th. When you go after organized crime, yes, you start at the bottom, and this was the rationale that everybody was using to justify the Justice Department seeming to do nothing for the first 2 years, year and a half anyway, solid year and a half. And you work your way up. That's the theory. But in actual practice, the Justice Department was not working their way up. They were just going after the little fish because, hey, that's easy. And it's not politically painful or difficult, and you're not going to get your butt kicked by Jim Jordan. It looks like the FBI has been successfully cowed by these Republican collaborators in Congress, who many of whom actually asked Donald Trump for pardons because they knew that they were committing sedition against the United States of America. Something very close to treason. They were committing a crime against this government, and did commit. And there has been no accountability for them up to this point whatsoever. And there really should be.